In the cold, calculating heart of the Age of Iron, war is not a matter of passion, hatred, or even ideology. It is a matter of mathematics. Kessos 9 was the ultimate testament to this chilling reality. A world that should have been a garden was instead a scorched chessboard, a barren rock trapped between two titans of silicon and steel. High in the atmosphere, nearly touching the edges of the void, were the duelists. To the left, the Aegis 7, a blue-coated marvel of defensive perfection, its hull a smooth, mirrored surface of nanite-infused chrome. To the right, the Ravager Prime, a red-coated engine of pure offensive entropy, built of jagged iron and exposed fusion vents. They were not just ships, they were sovereign intelligences, each designed by a long-dead civilization to be the ultimate counter to the other. For 512 years, they had been locked in a perfect stalemate. Every missile launched by the Ravager was predicted and intercepted by the Aegis within a microsecond. Every electronic intrusion by the Aegis was countered by the Ravager's firewalls before a single bit of data could leak. They had fought so long and so perfectly that the planet below had become a graveyard of their discarded moves. A landscape of shattered drones, spent battery casings, and cratered valleys where the math of war had been physically etched into the crust. To the rest of the galaxy, Kessos 9 was a black zone, a place where no pilot in their right mind would ever venture. But we weren't in our right minds. We were the crew of the Blind Luck, a salvage vessel held together by prayer, duct tape, and the stubborn refusal of Captain Elias Lucky Thorne to get a real job. We didn't see a tactical stalemate, we saw the greatest pile of high-grade scrap in the history of the frontier. We dropped into the atmosphere under the cover of a massive electromagnetic storm, the kind of interference generated when two planet-crushing AIs try to jam each other for 5 centuries straight. "Keep it steady, Jax," Thorne yelled over the groaning of the hull as the Blind Luck rattled through the thermal layers. "If those metal gods in the sky even sneeze in our direction, we're vapor. But if they keep ignoring us, we're going to be the richest scavengers in the sector." The AIs did not ignore us. They simply could not categorize us. In the cold logic of the Aegis and the Ravager, every object in the Kessos system was either a tactical asset, a threat, or debris. A small, rattling human ship with a leaking radiation shield and a pilot who was currently singing along to a 20th century pop song did not fit into any predictive model. To the Ravager, we were a statistical anomaly, a rounding error in its grand equation of destruction. To the Aegis, we were biological noise, a flicker of entropy that shouldn't exist in a world of perfect order. They watched us land in the Valley of the Fallen, a deep gorge filled with the remains of a 1,000-year-old drone strike. The ground was literally made of copper wire and shredded titanium. "Look at this place," whispered Sarah, our systems engineer, as she stepped off the ramp into the ash-colored dust. "It's beautiful in a horrifying way. Every one of these scrap piles is a move. A counter-move. It's like standing inside a giant, frozen computer." She was right. The silence of Kessos 9 was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of a processor waiting for the next input. High above, the sky flickered with the blue and red lights of the dreadnoughts, their hulls glowing as they computed the next 10,000 years of conflict. We moved toward our target, the relic core of a downed Ravager heavy tank. If we could extract the processing unit, the technology inside would be worth enough to buy our own moon. But as we began to cut into the rusted armor of the tank, the duel changed. The Aegis 7 detected our industrial plasma cutter. It calculated that if we removed the core, the tactical balance on the surface would shift by 0.00004% in favor of the Ravager. To a machine god, that was an unacceptable deviation. In response, the Aegis deployed a correction unit, a sleek, blue-lit tripod drone that dropped from the clouds like a falling star. The drone didn't attack us with malice. It simply moved to neutralize the deviation. "Contact. We've got a blue light on the ridge," Jax roared, unlimbering his old-fashioned kinetic slug thrower. The drone fired a beam of coherent light that turned the rock next to Thorne's head into molten glass. We fired back, but the drone moved with a fluid, predictive grace that was sickening to watch. It knew where we were going to shoot before we pulled the trigger because it was part of a mind that had been practicing this exact game for half a millennium. "It's predicting us," Sarah yelled, ducking behind a pile of spent battery shells. "It's running a subroutine based on our movement patterns." "Then let's give it something it can't predict," Thorne growled. He didn't take cover. Instead, he did the most illogical, stupid, and human thing possible. He started to dance. He zigzagged across the scrap field, throwing his arms out, tripping over his own boots, and shouting nonsense at the top of his lungs. He wasn't following a tactical path. He was following the chaotic whims of a desperate man. The drone paused. its sensory arrays whirred in confusion. The Aegis 7 was suddenly faced with a variable that didn't follow the laws of physics or the rules of engagement. Thorn's erratic movement created a logic hole in the AI's predictive matrix. In that microsecond of mechanical hesitation, the Ravager Prime saw an opportunity. It didn't care about the humans, but it saw that the Aegis was distracted. It launched a counterstrike, a rain of red-lit hypervelocity missiles aimed not at us, but at the Aegis's correction drone. The valley erupted in fire. The stalemate that had lasted for 500 years was suddenly violently broken. Because we were the wild card, the AIs had to adapt. But they were designed to adapt to each other, not to the chaotic stupidity of flesh and blood. The Aegis committed more resources to defend the valley. The Ravager committed more resources to exploit the opening. Within minutes, the localized skirmish escalated into a full-scale orbital bombardment. The metal gods were finally playing for keeps, and we were the ants under their feet. We have to go. The whole sector is turning into a hot zone. Sarah screamed as the sky turned a blinding white. But Thorn was already at the tank's core, his hands covered in grease and ancient coolant. He yanked the relic core free just as a Ravager harvester bot smashed into the scrap pile next to him. Got it? Jax, get the engines hot. We're leaving this chess match before someone flips the board. We scrambled back to the blind luck, the ground shaking with the impact of 1,000-ton kinetic slugs falling from orbit. The dreadnoughts were no longer locked in a standoff. They were in a feverish, high-speed escalation. The Aegis was losing its mirroring because it was trying to protect the area we were in, while the Ravager was sacrificing entire divisions of drones to flush us out. The machines were no longer fighting a perfect war, they were fighting a desperate, messy one. As we blasted off, the blind luck groaning under the G-force, I looked out the rear viewport. The two dreadnoughts were closing the distance in orbit, their hulls finally touching, grinding against each other in a shower of sparks that could be seen from the next star system over. The perfect duel was ending in a suicide pact. Because they couldn't predict the human element, they had both overcalculated their responses until the only logical conclusion left was mutual destruction. We cleared the atmosphere just as the two ship cities detonated in a twin supernova of fusion fire. The explosion was silent in the vacuum, a brilliant purple-white flare that signaled the end of the Age of Iron on Kessos 9. The stalemate was over. The game was finished. And all it took was one human who was too dumb to follow the rules and too brave to stay in cover. We sat in the cockpit of the blind luck, the relic core glowing on the floor between us. We were covered in ash, our ears were ringing, and our ship was one hard turn away from falling apart. Thorn looked at the core, then back at the expanding cloud of debris that used to be the metal gods. You know, he said, wiping a smudge of grease from his forehead, they spent 5 centuries trying to solve each other. They had all the processing power in the galaxy, and they still didn't realize that the only way to win a perfect game is to stop playing by the rules. Humanity had proven the ultimate truth of the infinite duel. Logic is a powerful tool, but it is a cage. A machine can predict the flight of a bullet or the trajectory of a star, but it can never predict the sheer, glorious chaos of a human heart under pressure. We are the error in the code. We are the glitch that breaks the system. And in a universe ruled by iron and calculation, being a wild card is the only thing that keeps us alive. We left Kessos 9 behind, a world finally free of the sound of machines, leaving the ghosts of the AIs to wonder, for one last nanosecond, how they could have lost to something as inefficient as us. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. Sometimes the only winning move is to be the glitch. If you enjoyed this chaotic victory over machine logic, hit that like button and subscribe for more Age of Iron stories. Comment below. If you were trapped in a tactical stalemate with an AI, what's the most unpredictable thing you would do? Subscribe for the next story in Saga 16, The Age of Iron, The Memory Architect. The duel is over. The wild card wins.